Okay, so welcome to episode 1 of our podcast.
Thank you.
What is our
Thank you.
it's Wealthy Women
Yeah.
podcast, right? Okay,
And
yeah,
Wealthy
okay.
Woolen, we can call it the Holistic Dental Wellness.
Okay.
It's a nice little den, that we have here. We're having a little bit of wine, something to eat, and just, talking about the business and, what it is that we want to offer to the community as far as mental health is concerned.
Yes.
Hmm.
So, actually, so can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because I know like a lot of people feel drawn to like working with people that like they resonate with, you know what
Hmm.
I'm saying?
Hmm.
And like I'm just curious, I guess a little bit like about what your testimony is. Like
Hmm.
why did you, I guess, like get into the mental health space, and
Hmm.
like why did you start this
Hmm.
practice?
Well, to be truthful, I mean, I've always loved psychology, the study of it, the study of the mind, but I never saw myself doing individual therapy. I just kind of shied away from it. I didn't think that's what it was for me. I kind of like the more, administrative part or doing things where, I wasn't, one to one, no direct care, and it just kind of somebody had asked me one day to come join them and because they wanted to do the practice and I was like but she was a nice girl and everything, so I said let me try it, let me see how it would be because I have done outpatient with other facilities, and but it wasn't something where I thought I would do something on my own. And once I ventured out with her, and had more autonomy about making decisions and everything, it really became more real.
Mm.
It didn't, that practice didn't really go far only because she wasn't licensed and I was the only clinician. So it got to be a little too much. So we just decided to kind of, disband. But, we left on good terms and everything. But it kind of showed me that it was something, that I could do.
Okay.
Hmm.
So getting that little like taste of autonomy and like doing things the way that you want it, is that what inspired you to start innovative? Oops. Is that what inspired you to start innovative behavioral?
Well, that's a funny story. As far as starting innovative, I had actually partnered with somebody else that asked me to come aboard and it didn't work out. It was, it's a long story, but we ended up parting ways and it wasn't a, a great part. You know what I mean? And I was just going to give it up because I was like, I ain't got time for this,
Yeah.
but I had a big caseload. I had good friends that were like, why can't you do this? Why wouldn't you do this? So I stepped out on faith and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and try this myself. And that's what I did. That's how Innovative was born. And, I got my own space and, the clients were there and they continued to come, so, I went ahead and forged forward.
So what sets your practice apart is the fact that the methods that you use are different, right? Thus the
Hmm.
name. So like
Hmm.
what point did it dawn on you that like people needed alternative methods other than what the mainstream really has to offer?
I think it was because, there's such a stigma around mental health. So, people have a um, idea of what is therapy is, and then a lot of times once they come in the office and they have the intake, they're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Or, oh, I like this. I have kids that come in and be like, oh, this is wonderful. I want to come back. You know what I mean? So just being able to meet people where they are and giving them specifically what they need for what they're going through. And it usually turns out to be totally different. Sometimes it's just about me sitting there talking to them and still giving them what they need through the therapeutic, practices, the traditional cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy. But there's so many ways that you can do it, where
Yeah.
people feel comfortable,
Yeah.
and then we brought in the holistic side of the
Hmm.
practice, bringing in the mindfulness, which became a big thing during the pandemic, because everybody was shut in and everybody was trying to find ways um, to improve their emotional and mental health,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
mindfulness kind of was reborn. It's
Hmm.
always been a thing,
Oh yeah.
but not necessarily with our community,
Hmm.
so You had the meditation, you had the relaxation and deep breathing, the Reiki, the massage, all of these things that together, provide like a mindfulness hodgepodge of
Mhm.
wellness. And, I got really excited about it, but trying to translate that to other people sometimes is hard. They don't understand it.
Yeah.
So, we've had events and different things, to try to introduce it to the community so that they can see, the benefits of it.
Yeah.
I've had clients that I've referred to you and some of the other young ladies that work in the practice, and they're really into it. They really loved how they felt afterwards. So that's something, that's really a big part of the practice that I'm really proud of.
I really like how you demonstrate, I feel like, the open-mindedness that you're encouraging people to have when it comes to therapy. You're demonstrating it yourself because, in the time that I've known you, um, you've been open to things like Reiki, to things like astrology, the tarot cards. So, like,
Hmm.
even though you don't have a ton of experience with them or know everything about them, you're open-minded to the fact that it can work for people, which is great, and I feel like that's really
Hmm.
good that you're leading by an example of being open-minded because I think a lot of people, it's like you said, the stigma that there is around mental health to start with. So there's that challenge in even admitting that you need help,
Hmm.
which that's me. Like, there's that challenge. And then also, too, when you start to talk about things that people are not knowledgeable about, a lot of people are resistant to things that are
Hmm.
unfamiliar to them
Yes.
because things that are unfamiliar can be scary.
Hmm.
So I'm so excited for this. I actually feel like this is a culmination of my entire life, my
Hmm.
entire life's work.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I think it's great. We had our event on August 3rd, and we introduced, the chakras, the chakra education, and we did sound bath, and a lot of people, were really into that. I have a lot of clients that are waiting for the next event, and I know next week you're starting to break down the chakras, and you're going to start with the root chakra and really explain what that's all about and about the whole energy healing thing. And I
Yeah.
think people are hungry for that.
I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
really excited for that. I've been tweaking it a little bit, just getting it to where I think it's going to be. Um, I want it to be appropriate for all levels of people, whether you're
Mhm.
new to doing this or
Mhm.
you're not. I still
Mhm.
want everyone to be able to benefit from the workshop. So September 21st is the
Mhm.
exact day.
Right.
So
Mhm.
we're putting that out there. September 21st, we're having our root chakra workshop. I keep getting all of these ideas for like more things that I want to share with everyone. So I'm so excited to have our astrology workshop, to have our
Mhm.
tarot workshop. And so it's like, I think I need to maybe just like slow down and like pace myself because it's like there's time for everything,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know. But it
Mhm.
hasn't been really, it's only been within the past like couple of days, to be honest, where I've started to really get this like urge and passion around like wanting to teach other people, like people like you, really
Mhm.
teach other people the methods that I use so then that way you can just use them,
Mhm.
like you're in a position to help so many people with these tools. So like I want to teach you how to use them,
Mhm.
and I want
Mhm.
to teach other people who are healers how to use these specific tools. And I think like I always was resistant to teaching because obviously, people who watch this or listen to this are going to know
Mhm.
a lot of you guys have asked me to teach you. A lot of people,
Mhm.
so many people have asked me, when are you going to come out with the class? When are you going to do a course? Will you do one-on-one with me? For years, people have been asking me to tutor them and mentor them. And I always have been resistant to doing it because I think like I do tend to like judge myself a lot, and I felt like maybe my methods, I was worried that my methods are gonna be too like strange or
Mhm.
I don't know. So I was like, if my methods are too like weird or out there, but then at the same time, I need to trust that people feel drawn to me to be their
Mhm.
teacher for a reason,
Mhm. Sure.
and everyone who knows me knows that everything I do is about self improvement and spiritual evolution. So this is just like, and everyone who knows me well knows this, I'm constantly like breaking down the ego. And this is just another way that, like, I always have this tendency to be like, well, I'm so different and
Mhm.
only I'm like this and only and of course that's ridiculous,
Mhm.
right? But like
Mhm.
the ego makes you think like that. So it's like me being able to not make it about myself and worry
Mhm.
about like if people are going to resonate with me or not, and just put the things out there. So I'm excited to teach other people
Mhm.
in the ways that I know how to teach them. So
You just
that's
got to go for it. It's sort of
yeah.
like imposter syndrome,
It's
you know?
exactly. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
exactly.
you start questioning yourself, but you know what you know. You know what you do. You know what results you get. People are flocking to you. You know, you have followers. So that right there is telling you that, what you're doing is a gift,
Yeah.
So we got to get it out there to other people. And people, they want to know. They just, sometimes my clients ask me, well, what is Reiki or what is this? And I'll try to explain. So that's why I do need to, sit down and really get the education so that
Yeah.
I can explain and really, help them directly too. Because I'll give them like, the surface level. Oh, it's energy healing, and
Mhm.
we'll talk about the chakras. But that's why I think this is very important, the podcast to let people know, the things that we're doing, and also the separate workshops so people can really come in, especially the kids, because I think it's really going to be a big change, for the kids to be able to learn how to self-regulate,
Yeah.
self-soothe in a different way other than medication
Mhm.
and, strict discipline and all of
Yes.
that, and
There's
being labeled, a problem child.
That is so true. I don't think there's anything more important than doing that. I don't think there's
Hmm.
anything more important than working with kids, being there for them and teaching them when they're young. So
Hmm.
the only thing that's like next to important after that, that maybe is at the same level of importance, is working with parents specifically on parenting.
Hmm.
And I also have so many ideas for how we can be implementing the new tools that we're introducing to
Hmm.
that specifically, because if we can teach the parents mindfulness for one, that's going to help them to become a better parent. And if we can teach them how to use the tools that we're offering to better understand their own child
Hmm.
and their own child's specific needs and specific ways of communicating, their specific ways of experiencing emotions, because all of this is in our birth chart. You can't be afraid to look, because
Hmm.
um, there's riveting, like the information sometimes that's there. And I think it's a reason why a lot of people too shy away from astrology and tarot and things like that, because it sees everything.
Hmm.
It goes all the way to the root, it goes all the way to the source, and it can be very uncomfortable if you are not used to, not willing, not ready, not in a place where you are able to look at your own shadow, able to
Hmm.
look at where you are the problem.
Hmm.
That's what a lot of people don't want to talk about, but that's what we're going to talk
Hmm.
about. And it is so simple. It is
Yeah,
literally
and
that
that's one of
simple.
the four agreements, Don't take
Yes.
things personal. Do your best. Be impeccable with your word. And there's one more. I'm missing one. I gotta look it up.
I read this. I read this years ago, and I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But that is,
I'm gonna have to look it up because I'm gonna have to let everybody know out there because it's so profound.
I'm always pausing to look things up like in the moment because I'm like, no, it's gonna bug me if I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. And
Mm,
always do your best. That's a big one.
always do your
Making
best. Making
assumptions,
assumptions. Yes.
mind
Ooh.
reading.
Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, ooh.
Yes.
So and I always say this. It's so funny that that's the one that was missing, because that one is hits the hardest. Don't make
Mm-hmm.
assumptions,
Yes.
and it's so easy, and it's literally all we do. It's all we
Mm-hmm.
walk around and do is make assumptions, and that's why I
Mm-hmm.
always tell people. And at the end of the day, And I took this from Abraham Hicks, which you guys will hear if you know me already. If not, you will know how much I love Abraham Hicks. But I got this from Abraham Hicks, and it's not about what people think or feel about you. It's what you think they think or feel
Right,
at the end of the
exactly.
day, because that
Mhm.
is how you are going to move. And that's the most important thing for you to look at, because that's just showing you how you think and feel about
Mhm.
yourself, really.
Mhm.
And that's what really matters.
Yeah. And our thoughts and our emotions are directly related to our thoughts. So if we're having a negative thought, if we're making assumptions, and now you're going to get a feeling from that, you're going to feel some kind of way about this assumption that you made, and then your behavior is going to directly be tied to that feeling, and it could
Yes.
be all a lie,
Yes,
you know.
exactly.
Mhm.
And then you just keep creating more and more of the
Mhm.
same experience, so much to the point that it's like the whatever the thing you initially felt that wasn't true, it may become true. Or it's like your experience is that of if it was true to begin with. And that is why always I'm talking about our thoughts and emotions ultimately creating the reality that we experience, which is another reason why it's so important to take accountability and
Mhm.
reclaim your power, because you are creating your experience through your thoughts and emotions. So the more you're walking around with resentment, with
Mhm.
whatever negative emotions that you have towards people, towards your situation, it's only perpetuating the cycle that you want to
Yeah.
be freed from so badly.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And I talk to clients all the time about mind reading. That's what, is kind of called, as far as, cognitive behavioral therapy is concerned. And it's the same thing, making assumptions about other people's thoughts and feelings, and you go with that and you go down that, rabbit hole. And a lot of times it's for nothing. You know what
I
I
can
mean?
hear my man when whenever he watches, he's gonna be like, "Yep, that's all she does."
Yep. So, it's just about positive communication,
Yeah.
and, talking things through and focusing on those four agreements and just being true to yourself.
Yeah. Every time that you think you finished the work, there's always a little bit more. And it's so important to have community, to have people who understand. And even if people don't understand exactly, at least you can have people who are supportive and can create a safe space for you to feel those emotions, because um, a lot of us don't have that. And I want to like call all of those people out of the corner that they're in and just tell them to come here, come here. It's okay.
Mhm, mhm,
I know how
mhm.
you feel.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. And I know that it's because you feel so alone, it just makes it feel worse. And I just want you to know that like you you aren't alone. I have plenty of people that I know love me, but they don't understand the pain that I go through. And so
Mhm.
it's important to have somebody who understands that pain, because part of getting to that point of reclaiming your power and finding forgiveness, you do need to be validated first. I
Mhm.
have learned that, because a
Mhm.
lot of we grow up or we go through life where it's you got to shove your emotions down, or you got to be like, oh well, we're conditioned to keep pushing through no matter how much pain we're in. And we are also encouraged, I feel like, to not dwell on things that really do need acknowledgement.
Mm.
And so that's important.
Yes, for sure. Pushing things down, it doesn't do anything but just keep them there to grow, to come out in some other negative way.
That you may not have
Mhm.
control
Mhm.
over. So,
Mhm. When you're a child, that's like a defense mechanism. You're able to push things down just to protect yourself. Your body and your brain protects itself. But then if you don't deal with those things in a moment, especially trauma, it's going to eat you alive. It's going to come up again. It's going to show up in the choices you make. It's going to show up in the decisions and in your life at some point, when it comes to you getting married, when it comes to you having kids, when it comes to you making career choices and things like that.
mhm.
And some people don't even realize that till later on in life, that it goes all the way back to that. It goes back to your childhood, and most things can be traced back to childhood, something in your childhood, whether it's traumatic or not. And a lot of people feel that trauma has to be this big monster. It has to be where you were molested or, which is horrible,
Yeah.
and a lot of people do go through that, but trauma is very subjective.
Hmm.
It could be something you saw, it could be something you heard, it could be an experience that you had that stayed with you and really became something that wouldn't let go and became your own personal monster. Start to really just pull back the layers very slowly, you know what I mean? But it's a scary thing, and people have to be ready to do that. And everybody's not ready when they walk through the door.
Yeah.
It's work, and you hear people talk about that all the time about doing the work. And it's real.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. You have to do the work. But the work shouldn't be something that makes you really feel bad. When we talk about, that's why I like the holistic feel and the part of the practice, because that helps that work become less of work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're going through severe anxiety because you're dealing with some trauma reactions, now you can, focus on meditation. You can do some Reiki. You can do some sound bath healing to help ease a lot of those symptoms, and it's things that you should look forward to, that relaxation, getting your central nervous system aligned. That's where it all starts. It starts in here.
Exactly.
So, that's our mission, is to really get people to understand that. Definitely come in, for the traditional therapy. That's where it starts, but we want to do something different for you as well. We want to embrace you with, you know, the whole practice and be able to give you individually what it is that you need, because everybody's different. Everybody doesn't need the same thing,
Right.
So we definitely want to be able to do that. And it would be so nice, as you mentioned about talking and teaching the parents, it would be nice to be able to go into the schools too,
Oh, yeah.
because the schools now, you're starting to see them incorporating some things. They have like quiet rooms or calm down rooms. I have some kids talk about doing yoga sometimes, you know what I mean? But to really be able to educate them and give them some type of a curriculum that they can really utilize,
Hmm.
for these kids that they label, as problem kids, kids that they're all always putting, sending to the principal's office, or they're suspending them, all the time. And, a lot of times these kids are just crying out for help, and
Yeah.
people don't really understand what it is that they're going through. And this generation now, they're so self-aware. They have so much anxiety. I have kids that are 7, 8, 9 years old worrying about college, what college they can pick and what they can get into. When I was 7 and 8, I was that wasn't even in my radar. You know what I mean? But it's a different world now. And if you're dealing with those things at that young age, just imagine what other anxieties. Friends. Oh my God, friends is such a big thing with these kids
Hmm.
now. I spend a lot of my sessions with kids that are so hurt because, of something going wrong in a friend group, and they feel all these things so deeply. So just to be able to get them the tools, just far as their self-confidence,
Hmm.
their self-esteem, and to teach them how to hold their head high no matter what, no matter who they are, no matter what their deficits are, no matter what their handicap may be or their diagnosis, and to have them to be able to thrive, and that's been a problem with a lot of the young kids now. And then they get, they're filling with these medications, and that just deadens them. Now there's no emotions, there's no communication, because they can't, because of these medications that, they keep piling on. So this one doesn't work, so let's try this one. Now you have a child that's on 4 or 5 medications, and the parents are wondering why they're tearing up the house, and
Right.
why they're, up all night, and, why they're kicking holes in the wall. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, I think it's definitely a need out there, and I think that would be a great thing if we could really come up with something to work with the parents, to work with the schools,
It's a really
that
good
would be.
idea.
On the website. Which one is the website again?
It's innovativebehavioral.us. So you could go on there and request information, request an appointment. If you want to know more information about our events, you can leave a message, leave your email address or your phone number, and we'll get back to you.
Okay. And so that's where you can go to give us your email if you want to be part of our newsletter that's upcoming. We'll also have our next podcast episode scheduled for the first week of October. Make sure you are getting notified wherever you're listening or watching this so you know when it comes out. And we also have our event coming up on the 21st where we're going to be learning all about chakras and how to heal them.
If you're looking for therapy, adults, children, couples counseling, marriage counseling, go to the website. You can give us a call at 856-258-7464 and we'll get you in, get you registered. We take all private insurances. So come on through. And we also work on a sliding fee scale.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Looking forward to talking to you guys again in the beginning of October.
All right. Bye, guys. See you in the next
Bye-bye.
one.